Good evening. This is the October 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. Trustees in the room are
Eric Crone.
Jean Landis-Nauman, and online we have
Jill Vaughn.
All right. Our other two trustees are unable to make the meeting tonight. And Jason, if you don't mind, we're going to just dispense with the minutes, and then we'll get right to you. We have with us tonight Jason DeRozier. Is that the way you pronounce it? From OCPC, who's here to talk to us about the housing production plan. So the first order of business is to approve the minutes from June. I did send those out, I think, with the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a
I will make
motion
a
to
motion.
approve. I'll second
that
it.
motion.
It's the delay.
It is. All right.
It really is
Okay,
the delay.
Give her the motion, give me the second.
Okay, motion for the minutes of 6/5/25 to be approved as presented. Because we're both local and remote, we need a voice vote.
Eric, aye.
Jean, I.
Sheila, I.
Hybrid is the word I was searching for. It only gets worse as you get older.
Oh, tell me.
Okay, so we were scheduled to have a meeting September 4th. We did not have a quorum. It was just Paul and May. So we did not conduct any business at all. So our next agenda item is to meet with Jason. And we'll go back to the planning board. So Jason, would you kindly just introduce yourself, explain what we're going to do tonight?
Sure. So good evening. My name is Jason DeRozier. I am the senior planner for housing and public engagement at the Old Colony Planning Council. And just, I suppose, full disclosure, I did live in Kingston for a number of years on 2nd Brook Street.
All right.
So I'm very familiar.
And you're
with
going to
this
take
area.
good care of us, right?
Gonna do my best.
All right.
Live in Whitman now, but it's really excited to sort of dig into the housing production plan for Kingston as a project. So just a little bit of an update. So your last housing production plan was done in 2019.
Right.
They're 5 years, so it has, or in process of expiring. And so Kingston, the town of Kingston has contracted with the Old Colony Planning Council to update the housing production plan. So to date, I'm in process of working on the needs assessment, all of the data collection, to update all of the tables and the demographics for the town, as well as a pretty detailed market analysis in terms of housing needs, cost burden, rental rates, sales, sales records, those sorts of things. We did have a survey, a public survey that was launched. That survey closed on Monday. So next week I'll start the process of analyzing the survey to sort of see.
Have any idea how many people responded? Or you'll have that next week?
Nope, I can pull that up right now.
Okay.
I do want to say, because my colleague Joanne is doing the age-friendly plan for the town of Kingston, we linked the surveys together. So when you did one, it sort of auto-directed you to the other.
I thought that was sneaky.
That was not the trend.
Okay.
The age-friendly survey had many more responses.
Yeah.
I want to say it's probably in and around between 150 to 200.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Right.
not a bad showing.
No, it's more than we get at town meeting.
Yeah.
And certainly more than I get on some of my other surveys
Okay.
that I do. So
Yeah.
I think.
Can you briefly just explain so everybody who's watching knows what a housing production plan is and why it's important to do this?
Yep. So the state, through the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, requires towns to essentially have an active or a current housing production plan. And the goal of the housing production plan is to help towns and guide towns towards their 10% affordable housing on the subsidized housing inventory. There are towns that have reached or met the 10% or even exceed the 10% that still do housing production plans, because even though you, so for example, I'm working with the town of Abington. to update their housing production plan. They've just exceeded the 10%. They're at 10.10%. But as their population grows and as they get more development, it's a moving target. And so even though if you're at 10%, you may not be at 10% forever. And so it's always good to have a current housing production plan on file and on record. It also keeps you competitive and eligible for certain grants, having a current housing production.
Now, who's supposed to be utilizing the information in the housing production plan?
Good question. So I think it's a combination of town stakeholders. So obviously, affordable housing trusts, if a town happens to have one, I think it's a good roadmap and it provides a good sort of basis for affordable housing sort of priorities and goals. Town planners, building department folks, zoning board, planning board, et cetera, et cetera. It's also good for residents, and other town stakeholders to be aware of it.
Do you have any recommendations on how we can get our planning board and ZBA to utilize it, the report?
That's a good question. I'm going to write it down so maybe I can incorporate that into the housing production.
This, honestly, I have no idea how much, if any, they're utilizing the report, but I think where the town is investing so much money and it is a requirement that we ensure that the boards that are supposed to be utilizing it are utilizing it. Does your department offer any kind of training for all of the boards that should be using it?
So I'm somewhat new to
Okay,
OCPC. I've been on board since May of 2024. So it's just over a year.
okay.
I started part-time because my background, I got my planning degree from Northeastern University. Worked in Boston for a while for a community development corporation, wanted to get more involved in my own community on the South Shore. And so I reached out to OCPC, had applied for a job, didn't get it. But they ended up reaching out to me when they were working on a couple of master plans because of my writing ability brought me in. And so I started part-time, and then because of sort of the focus on housing and the real, like, I don't know, the targeting of housing lately, and OCPC's in the work in the housing space has sort of increased. It brought me in to do like housing planning work. So I do HPPs, housing sections of master plans. I'm doing some zoning work with the town of Whitman and the town of Abington around land use and zoning, smart growth zoning specifically. And so it's not something that we sort of like, as of right now, have in our sort of like menu of options, but I'm sort of thinking about how we support communities on the ground level beyond reports and studies and zoning analyses and so forth, how we can maybe help sort of like implement housing production plans, sort of like, now you have this report, now what, right? Rather than sort of dumping it on someone and saying, good luck, see you in 5 years.
Is this something that the Board of Selectmen could have either Jason or someone from OCPC do a presentation for the public and town committees to understand what it is and why we should use it?
We should probably coordinate with Val, our town planner, because I don't know. My guess is that Val would be the biggest user of this in conjunction with the ZBA and the planning board and us, the Board of Selectmen. So probably just need to coordinate with her to see what her thoughts are.
I'm thinking that, the public is basically paying for this. And I think that, all the work that's going to go into this, there should be some sort of public presentation, not in detail, but a summary of what this is and who's going to be using it and how it could affect our community. I think it deserves some public airing.
And we do that with a lot of things that Val's working on, the master plan, all these things, safety study that we have and all the different roads and the priorities that we're working on. So we do that, probably once a quarter with Val giving us updates. So I kind of see this along the lines with that. So, and have you worked with Val Massard, our town planner? Yeah. Okay. So that would be my suggestion, that we kind of coordinate it with her and see.
But I do think there should be a presentation once it's completed, so everyone knows what it is and why we did it.
Yeah, there'll probably be public engagement even before it's done. I try to sort of, have community voice and representation throughout the process. And so obviously there was a public survey, but really
Yeah.
trying to meet folks where they're at. So using the Abington housing production plan that I've been working on as an example, I had a number of focus groups with residents who live in the housing authority properties in Abington, because they are stakeholders. They're not generally part of these conversations. So making sure that they were also part. Sort of after the survey is analyzed, maybe having some sort of like public engagement event or a forum to sort of like reviewing the findings, like this is what I've heard. Does it reflect sort of like what you see? Just to make sure that folks that participate in the survey, as well as those that don't, are able to sort of craft the direction of the housing production plan implementation steps. So it's not just me as a planner saying, I know what's best, sort of like, here's the strategies I think will work for you, without it being sort of like informed by the folks who live and work in town.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it, all that time and effort and money put into it, and then it goes in a drawer somewhere. Yeah. All right, so proceed.
Yep, so the survey analysis is sort of going to start next week. Again, the needs assessment and the market analysis are ongoing. That's the process in itself. I will say, first off, I wanted to say, I was quite surprised at the work of the Affordable Housing Trust. You have those great videos on your website. When I looked on it, sort of like talking about like what is affordable housing, why is it important, and sort of in a sense demystifying a lot of that, because what I found in my work at OCPC, as well as just in the affordable housing space altogether, is that there's a misconception around what is affordable housing. And something
This will be.
And something I try to do and build into my work, particularly in housing production plans, is to really discuss the nuance around affordability. And so there's subsidized housing, there's sort of like inclusionary development affordable housing, there's 40B affordable housing. But in the end, everyone needs affordable housing, because if you can't afford your mortgage payments or rent, regardless of how much money you make, your housing, you're going to lose it regardless, right? And so affordable housing is something that touches everybody.
Right.
And so really trying to get that message out, because what I don't want to happen in this work is just people hearing affordable housing and they have their own sort of like thoughts around it and come out and just push back against it because no one's having that nuanced conversation.
Okay, and your brochure that we put together, okay.
Good. And so what I wanted to do first off, before I really start, analyzing the surveys, doing a bulk of the writing of the housing production plan, is just meet with the Affordable Housing Trust to find out what goals or strategies that were identified in the previous plan should stay, or what are your sort of like, after 5 years of this one being written, what are your sort of like priorities and goals now as an affordable housing trust? Where do you see sort of like, what do you want to make sure is included in this, to make sure that I'm touching all the bases, because there are going to be things that maybe aren't identified in the survey that you might all know. So just getting a sense on where you are with your priorities.
I'm not always looking at the screen, so if you want to say something, you may have to just say, hey, Jean.
Yeah,
to get
not
my
a problem.
attention. I don't
He's
want
hit
to
everything on the head with us. So, I mean, it's like preaching to a choir over here, It's
I know.
I think, do you mind if I just add something? So I think one of the bigger things that have picked up here in Kingston, and I talked to the building department today, we're trying to hire a building inspector. So since our water moratorium was lifted, a lot of applications have come in, and we have a poor interim who's trying to handle it. But one of the big things that's really taking off is ADUs. So, I mean, I have a neighbor, a good friend of ours, their youngest son is the same age as my oldest son, and they're trying to get him to buy the house, and then they're gonna add an ADU in the back, and they're gonna move out to the backyard, rather than, moving to North Carolina. They're staying right here around their grandchildren. And that's a huge, I mean, that's really starting to pick up, I think, in all across the
I
state.
agree, yeah.
And and certainly for a housing production plan, I mean, that's the key thing is we don't want people to be priced out of town. We also want our, the younger generation to be able to afford to live here. So this is a great way of slowly, handling that.
The only downside is that unless they're willing to put a restriction on the resale, it cannot be included in the housing inventory,
Yeah,
the subsidized housing
right.
inventory. So
right.
I think it's a wonderful new addition to the tools available to people. But unfortunately, that 10%
Doesn't
that
meet-
you're supposed to be working towards,
Mm.
that cannot
It's not gonna
contribute to
work,
it.
right.
But I do support it. You know, we as an affordable housing trust have supported
Right.
the actions at town meeting because we felt it's a really important way for people to do just what you're talking about.
Right.
I would think, you know, one of the bigger items, just kind of building on that, is that we don't have starter homes.
Right.
We do not have starter homes.
And we don't
Yeah.
even have cheap enough land to
Well,
develop.
We do, if the right people wanted to do
Yeah.
it. And I know there are developers throughout the state who can and do specialize in starter homes. And that is really what we're lacking.
Mhm.
And that's something that I'm looking at for Abington because, so are you familiar with 40Y?
No,
You know 40R?
yeah.
Mhm.
Probably because the Kingston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 40Y was initially, when it was created, was part of 40R, but they sort of separated it. So 40Y is it's essentially a smart growth zoning district for starter homes. So you're
Okay.
zoning specifically for starter homes.
Hmm.
It goes through the same process like 40R, where you have to do sort of like your zoning analysis,
And
site
it has to
plan.
be around MBTA.
No, no, it can be wherever,
okay.
because 40R is really about smart growth, so they really want it within a mile to a mile
Yeah.
of a transit hub.
Right.
Yep.
40Y, because it's starter homes, doesn't have to be. It
Oh,
can
got it.
essentially be wherever, because if you're buying a
Okay.
starter home, you probably have a car versus like if you're renting in a smart growth district, you
Yep.
might not.
Yep.
If it's near the T, or the train. So the caveats are 4 units per acre
Hmm.
and 1,850 square feet. And 50
Is the max.
is the max.
Okay.
So they're designed to be smaller, right?
Yeah,
Smaller
but
starter homes.
Quarter acre. I mean, that's kind of where I grew up in Virginia. I grew up in a nice, they're $1 million homes now, but they were quarter acre, which was plenty. I mean, it was good woods. We all had colonials. It was probably 2,000 square feet and garages,
Mhm.
but they were starter homes. Now they're not.
Not
They're
And then I
not.
think
But-
50% of the starter homes in any given district need to be 3 bedrooms or more. This is a way to provide
Yeah,
starter homes for
yeah.
families. But if that's something that you would be interested in pursuing through the housing production plan,
Yeah.
that's something so the one caveat is that it's a fairly new program established at the state level, and so there's no 40Y districts currently.
Mhm.
So essentially someone's going to be the first.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be Whitman, working with them on their 40R. There's just no land in Whitman to sort of like do starter homes from scratch.
Yeah.
However, if that's something that might work for Kingston, it's something I can look into and
Do we
include
have
as a
land?
implementation strategy.
There are private owners who do have the land,
Yeah.
you know, but it's how much money they want to make, what they want to do with their land. And we have a fairly large amount of acreage in one spot. And my efforts to contact the owner have been not returned.
Yeah.
You know, and it would lend itself very much to starter homes mixed in with some other homes. And it would be, to me, it would be a great use of the land to get 4 units on an acre.
Yeah.
You know, it hasn't been that long since we wrote bylaws that required 2 to 3 acres per home.
Yeah.
You know, and then we realized what we were doing to ourselves. So
And for 40Y, there's no acreage requirement like there is with 40R. So for 40R, the state essentially wants to see 20 acres for a zoning district, unless you can get more units on less acres,
right.
like Lee, Massachusetts. But if you have an acre, 4 starter homes is sort of the zone it could be. So
Yeah.
it ends up being sort of like beneficial for the community that can do it.
What
Yeah.
about the Sacred Heart land? I don't know what's going on with it. I
I
should
don't
know that,
either.
but I don't.
Yeah. Did that come up in your discussions with Val?
Which one?
The
The
property by the Sacred Heart School?
Not specifically. I think it might have been mentioned in
Yeah.
passing once.
We had Thorndike who wanted to develop a mixed bag.
Very expensive
but-
house.
Oh, like a
this-
mini town. It was a mini town. And he wanted to develop
it
a
looked
town.
nice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There were homes, there were townhomes, there were condos, nicely laid out sports fields and whatnot, and they would have their own water and their own treatment facility, because that was a big thing.
Yeah,
But their most inexpensive unit was somewhere in the $700,000 range, and this was 2-3 years ago. I
Yeah.
think it was when I first joined the selectmen. I'm like, that's your cheap one? I mean, now that is cheap.
yeah, I
Like,
think you and I were in
years
that
ago.
meeting, and I just looked at
this is
the
ridiculous.
guy, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you're gonna need to earn. I remember I calculated it back then,
Yeah,
and interest rates were lower, and I was like, you're gonna have to earn $250,000 a year. How is that a starter?
right,
You know, and again, now salaries have gone up as well, but still not.
right. But
at
there
that
is,
point.
that is, and I think the sisters still own the property.
Yeah,
I have no idea what their
It's a lot of
intentions
land,
are.
too.
It is, and it's a shame, to me, you've got a really viable school building there.
Mhm.
I don't know how we market it, but to me, there's got to be a charter school or somebody looking for a school that's set up,
Mhm.
but it's got all this other acreage with it
yeah,
that, depending on their inclination and who they would get as a developer,
Mhm.
I think there's room to add it. And, we're going to get the usual issue of traffic and, but I think the problem is the lack of water and
it
sewer.
was, yeah, that they would have, he was building his own treatment center there
Yeah,
with the hopes, I remember he said the hopes were that
Mm-hmm.
later on they'd be able to tap in.
right.
But in the meantime, they were gonna have to build their own treatment
Yeah, well,
center.
meanwhile, the town owns several lots on Pottle Street
Right,
that I don't know if they've done the tax taking yet or not.
They
But
can.
they're quite late in
Right.
making their payments. And where we own a good portion of the lots there, I forget what the acreage is, but again, if we could find the right developer
Right,
who'd be willing, where the town already owns the land.
Yeah.
And if we can acquire the others, would be an option,
yeah, yeah,
so I think we have options. I think that's what
yeah,
we're trying to get across to you, is that we do have options to do something like that. And I do think that that's probably the biggest thing we've identified, is that there's no starter homes.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the average home here is selling for over $650.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to
It's-
be honest, it's not about apartment complexes anymore. Like, our town doesn't want them all, like, right? So we all obviously have to build off of, or we have plans for the, but we have to have the plans for the MBTA, area. But we want to think about the outside of that, like you were saying, like the single family homes and being able to have people be able to have a starter home here. And it's not just living in a large apartment complex for, $4,000 a month. And I think that's what I'm hearing from people. It's like they're never going to own a home because they're stuck in this apartment and they can't afford to get out of this apartment because it's all of their salary. And so
Right.
we've got to find a way to get people back into these homes. And in Kingston, they keep building more homes, but they're building, multi-million-dollar homes. And we've tried a few times while we've talked to different places and different people, about trying to get some veterans housing, which is something, big for us, that we'd like to get some veterans housing here. We've tried a few times with different areas with that, and haven't come to fruition quite yet on that. But, in the private, I guess some of the private, land, they want top dollar, and it does take time, to go
Yeah.
through the affordable housing, and they're like, okay, well, we want, top dollar. And so, it has been tougher in our town to kind of, get anything going. But then when the water moratorium ended too, that's a game changer now.
Yeah, I think it might be time to talk to the town treasurer. He's still the responsible
Yes.
person for tax title, and see what progress he's made on a few of them. Of course, the rules have changed now.
Mhm.
That, the equity has to go back to the owner, but I think we need to take a closer look at some of the already town-owned property where we could apply this 40Y. I was not familiar with this, so I appreciate you telling us.
So for 40Y, I just want, just in full disclosure, sort of within context, it operates kind of like the process with 40R. So in order to have a 40Y district, you have to approve, you apply to the state for that district, and then it has to go to town meeting to be adopted.
Piece of cake.
So I know, zoning discussions at town meeting can always be a little
Well,
tricky.
We were both here when we tried to do that 40R back in with Thorndike over, but it's property next to the mall that with a highly contentious landowner over there. So it was really that. And nobody, wants development.
But with
so
40,
it failed.
with 40Y, it can be somewhat of a different conversation because it's smaller
Right.
home ownership opportunities. It's not large rental build. And so
Yeah.
it's a different conversation, but it does have to go to town meeting.
Right. And we, again, the parameters would change. Town-owned land that's already has access to water and sewer, So, because if you do a 40Y, can you have a combined septic system, or does each house have to have its own septic system? Do you know the details on that?
So it just depends on what the infrastructure will support. And so if you have water and sewer capacity, because there's sort of there's a infrastructure certification that has to be part of it, saying that either you can serve the new development currently, or there's like planned infrastructure improvements some point down the road that would then unlock the opportunity to do that.
Where would a septic system come into play with a 40Y?
So if you don't have the capacity to have it on town services, then you'd have to have the conversation around septic. But you just sort of like have to figure out where it would go first, and then how many acres you have, because if it's only 4 homes, that's a different conversation than if you're doing 40 starter homes, right? And so
So just like 40R, then 40B goes to the ZBA, the 40Y also goes to the ZBA?
for permitting,
Mhm.
it would operate much like 40R, where you are building it essentially as of right. And so it's a much less truncated process and much more streamlined, where it's like, you apply for it. If it meets the zoning criteria, it would get different.
And my guess is, if you had, similar to what some condos do when they have septic, that, they might each have their own tank, but then it goes into one leaching field or something,
Yeah,
Might
so
be
there's
that way.
workaround.
Yeah.
All right, we keep getting.
Oh, no worries, it's a good conversation.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
So-
we need to try and wrap up by 6 if we can.
Sure. I won't be much longer anyway. So the goals you had on here from the 2009 one, there were 2019, sorry. There were 3 essentially. First is enhance local capacity to plan and advocate for, as well as develop and manage affordable housing units. That's essentially improving coordination among town boards, which you had already talked about. Support housing activities through the Affordable Housing Trust. Strengthen and expand partnerships with NeighborWorks Housing Solutions and other nonprofit organizations. Guide development through development. That's wordy, of project review guidelines for 40B, and affordable housing proposals, educate/communicate with the public. It sounds like most of those are still relevant and will just get updated and carried forward.
Yeah.
Number 2, identify sites for creation of affordable housing through new development, redevelopment, or preservation. The first one is encourage completion of affordable housing construction and already zoned for affordable housing. Versus the Kingston Place Smart Growth District, which I know was at the mall. Is that project done, or is there another phase?
No, it was never started.
Oh, it's never started.
No.
Was that the 40R, the
Yeah.
Thorndike? Yeah.
So the housing community that's at the mall now, that wasn't 40R?
No, it's
Was it 40R?
the apartments. I
No,
don't think
it's
so.
not
No.
40R.
It's 40. Is it 40B because it's apartments, or was
No.
that?
No,
No, it was the zoning we did at the mall.
Yeah, because if it was 40B,
No, you're right.
every one of those apartments would count as affordable housing.
Some of them
Because
do count though.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's why it's not a 40B.
if you go to the state website, Kingston is listed as having an adopted 40R district.
We do,
Okay, you do.
Yeah,
but
But
nothing.
it's not that one. Oh, you have adopted, but it hasn't been built on it yet.
Nothing built
You have
on.
the zoning overlay, but nothing. Okay.
Going back to this subsidized housing
Yep.
inventory,
Mhm.
The last time I looked on the state website,
Yep.
it was updated as of June of 23.
Yes.
I did correspond with the state on that, never got a response
Mhm.
back. I've talked with our town planner. I think we're a little bit under 5% now.
It hasn't been updated in quite some time. So the numbers for some places are much lower than it might be in
Yeah,
reality.
she had submitted additional units that had been previously reported.
Yeah.
How do we? You know, on there, it looks really bad, like we're not doing anything as a community to improve our numbers, but, and I don't know that the general public looks at that a lot, but when people want to use it against us, it's right.
No, and that was an issue that I had with updating Abington's, because if you look on their website, Abington's only at 7%.
Mhm.
And if you like email them, they're like, oh, no, actually it's 10.
Right,
So I'll sort of shake some trees to see if I can get some updated number, at least publicly, because it's not doing it's doing everyone a disservice if
Right.
they're not
right,
updating the
it's
number.
so outdated.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I misspoke. That 40R, we did pass it at town meeting eventually,
We did,
but I keep thinking that we didn't, but we
Yeah.
did, but it took so long
think-
and then the crash happened.
right,
We did-
but I think
no.
what happened was it came back as a reconsideration. And then it passed.
Okay,
That was
Yeah.
when we still did reconsideration.
that's right. Yeah,
Because we had over 1,000 people
Oh,
attend
yeah.
town meeting.
we did. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it did finally pass.
It did, but it took so long and
Right, we were in the middle
Thorndike
of the depression,
and that,
so,
yeah, and then Thorndike.
so
backed
he
out.
walked away.
Yeah,
And you can't blame him. I mean,
No.
he was gonna lose money.
Oh,
on
yeah.
that.
yeah.
The other one here for smart growth is mixed use residential overlay district. It's not referenced in the plan itself, but do you know if that has moved forward or
Yeah, I don't think so.
where it would be?
Is that the mall?
I don't know.
These are Val questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I can ask that.
Yeah,
But it was mixed use overlay.
Yep, mixed use
Yeah.
residential overlay district.
I feel like that is. the
So
mall.
commercial ground floor
That
residential.
could
overlay.
be,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that is the mall.
Okay.
But double check with Val.
And then publicly and privately owned properties explore and facilitate affordable housing on sites such as tax title parcels, which we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about.
Yeah.
Maple Street site.
Yeah.
Vacant or underutilized properties, which is generic, and adaptation or conversion of historic properties.
Mhm.
And then preserve affordable units, secure the renewal of long-term deed restrictions, and maintain affordability of Silver Lake homes. And continue monitoring privately owned affordable units, particularly home ownership units, because one way that communities are most likely to fall out of compliance with the SHI is through expiring affordable units. So for example, going back to the Abington example, they have 130 units that are scheduled to expire in 2032. So if those expire, even if they don't build any new housing,
Mhm.
they'll be back under the 10% because
Yeah.
they've lost 130
Yeah,
units
I
on.
think the majority of ours are group homes,
Okay.
so that's not
In the
anything that
perpetuity
we can
piece, yeah.
do, yeah. When you were talking about the Silver Lake homes, I think that's the, what's the nursing home there? What's it called?
Wingate.
Wingate.
Mhm.
I think that's now Wingate. You could check with
Yeah.
Val and the
Yep.
wording, but I think that's when
I think I saw that.
Yeah, it used to be called Silver.
Silver Lake.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think they call it the Silver Lake campus now.
Could be,
Wingate.
yeah.
And Wingate's a big conglomerate.
Yeah, and I've heard Val reference Wingate
Yeah.
Okay.
at least once.
Yeah.
And then third, update zoning to create opportunities for development of affordable housing and to encourage diversity in housing options, ease restrictions on small scale multifamily conversions and new development in appropriate areas. Incentivize affordable/inclusionary units and encourage use of flexible development provisions to protect natural and historic resources. Ease restrictions on congregate housing and accessory apartments to increase housing options for seniors and people with disabilities, and consider design regulations. Essentially, this is universal design to ensure some units will be designed for handicapped accessibility.
Mhm.
Does Kingston have inclusionary zoning currently? I know sometimes that can be a hot button issue.
Val.
It's valid.
Valid issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my next question was going to be, if there are beyond 40Y, if they're in sort of updating these goals, if there's other goals that come out or strategies that come out that could help Kingston meet their or get closer to
Mhm.
the 40 the SHI requirements, as well as provide housing for folks that are outside of that, right?
Right.
Are there any sort of recommendations I should stay away from? So, for example, I've had conversations with certain communities around where they're interested in sort of converting single family homes to multi-family, like on the inside, right?
Mhm.
So it looks like large single family home on the outside, but when you go in, it's like 2 units.
Mhm.
Some communities that would not be seen as a positive thing.
Mhm.
Inclusionary zoning may or may not be seen as a positive thing.
What is inclusionary zoning again?
So it requires a certain percentage of units to be affordable.
Oh,
So some communities have included it in their MBTA zoning. It's different than 40B.
What do you mean?
It's largely around market rate units. You get some.
okay.
I think we do,
Okay, I can look.
but again,
I
Val
can
can,
zone it.
Yeah.
Reducing parking minimums can be positive in some communities,
Yeah.
not in others. So
just reading about one community that did that to accommodate more housing units. Instead of requiring 2 or 3 parking spaces for each housing unit.
I don't think we have to do that though.
I don't know. I'm not
Mhm.
sure what the parking requirements are.
We might need to bring that up to Val as well.
Yeah.
You know, she's gonna know probably
What the
more of this,
requirements
right?
are, yeah.
Yeah.
and
And
then
Val is great. I don't know how much you've worked with her, but
I've talked to her quite a few
Yeah,
times.
she knows her stuff.
she does.
And then I guess my last question is, are there any accomplishments or things that you've done as the Affordable Housing Trust since 2019 that you want to make sure are referenced and sort of highlighted in the plan?
I wish we had more to report. You know, as you know, we did the 3 videos. We did put a brochure together, and every year we do apply for funding from CPC.
Okay.
We're still under $1 million. So
Mhm.
despite those who wonder why we keep asking for the money, I keep reminding them, you can't build a whole lot for $1 million anymore. So yes, every year we do that. And that's one of the things we need to talk about before you guys leave, because the assessment form is due in this month.
Yeah.
That, other than you know, doing everything we can to promote housing, we did support the ADU bylaw at town meeting. We've scoured all of the tax title properties multiple times. You know, we did work with the town to have one of the properties on Maple Street declared available for purchase. We thought we had a housing proposal that might be able to utilize that. Mostly, we've just been advocating and supporting. We've had various developers come talk to us. Many of them were in the last year or two, and the issue was the water moratorium, which is now lifted. We haven't seen them come back to us, and it could just be because they went off and did something somewhere else.
Well, it's also super expensive to build housing.
And you know, we do know of a 40B apartment proposal, but really, there's no point in us getting involved because every apartment is going to be counted on the SHI. So, you know, we did talk with the developer about that, and he was prepared to help us with some of the adjacent land, but that didn't go anywhere. I mean, we've tried to ferret out what we could do. You know, it's just us volunteers. It's not like we have a paid staff person, which we understand other communities do. We did reach out to other communities to see if we couldn't go together to hire someone like that. That didn't come to fruition. Apparently, everybody wants to work in their own little silo around here. So, I mean, we brought in an advisor in the beginning, and that's how the videos got done
Okay.
and the brochure. You know, we've just been treading water, waiting for an opportunity to come along where we could work with a developer. We felt with the little amount of cash that we had, that what we might be able to do is subsidize an additional unit or two in a bigger housing development.
Yep.
Because we probably could afford to do that. So it's, you know, and we attend all the mass housing partnership
Yep.
trainings and try and figure out what we could do here in Kingston. We're kind of at a standstill until we have a developer we can work with. Now, I'm really excited about this 40Y. I want to look into that a little bit more
Promising.
and see if we can identify some, especially town-owned properties, where we could get a developer who'd be willing to put in some starter homes, because the cost
Yeah,
wouldn't be that great,
Right.
I would think.
but we are looking at, you would need 20 acres to get this started, am I right?
No, that's 40R.
Oh, not 40Y?
There's no acreage
Oh,
I
required.
just need an
40Y.
acre.
Okay,
Yeah.
You could have an acre, you could have 50 acres. There's no requirement, because they're starter homes, so it's somewhat.
yeah. That's great.
All right,
Yep.
Sheila, you got anything?
No, I just, I feel the same way you guys, so nothing more to say except for, yes. I
Yeah,
think,
no,
I think
7
Patty has
years.
some of the info that we couldn't give you though, because I feel like we did help with getting the mall being more a part of the affordable housing, because I remember going through with, where I think it was Susan back then, because it was so close to the MBTA that like they were trying to say it wasn't close enough to MBTA, and we walked them through, and it was like, okay, can we get reassessed for this, because it is
And
close enough to the MBTA that it should be considered part of the MBTA
district, yeah.
district, because it was so close. So I know that the legislators did help us, and I believe we did, to help to have them allocate that so that it would count. So
Okay, thank you.
So if 40Y is something that you're interested in, if after you look into it, if something you're interested in pursuing, OCPC, largely myself, can provide the technical assistance to sort of like do the zoning exercises. Now actually doing the zoning and then writing the zoning bylaw and doing all the mapping, like that's a longer project that Val could apply for like one-stop funding to do.
Okay,
But if you want to talk to her about it, she could apply for DLTA funding. It's essentially technical assistance funding that OCPC offers. Those letters will go out in December, and we'll sort of review projects in January. We could at least sort of like do site selection,
Yeah,
which wouldn't take very long, I don't think.
that would be great.
okay, the other thing we have done is we've tried to work with Habitat for Humanity. We've had them in here a few times to talk about potential projects. We thought we had one right there near the high school that purchase fell through.
Okay.
I know they're concentrating right now on Plymouth, but they are interested in trying to work with us. Obviously, they're looking for funding we could provide with their projects. And I think now that we've been working with them, we feel comfortable that we could work with them on something. We did have South Shore Housing Corporation, I forget what they're called.
Neighborhood Housing Solutions.
That didn't really seem to go anywhere. I don't know if what we were thinking just didn't match with what they were thinking about doing. But it wouldn't be, bad to have a revisit on that and see if there's something now that we might be able to work on together. So I think there's still more conversations to be had, and we haven't given up, but I've been on this for 7 years, and people go, "Oh, how many units have you built?"
It's a process.
0. It's kind of frustrating, when you talk to other housing trusts, and we've got a big 120 unit project going on, and we're like, okay, I wish we could. And we have no old industrial buildings to redevelop. You know, like some of the communities have done. The only thing we have is that school, and that we don't own it, you know, so we don't really have a building that
Yeah.
could be repurposed like some communities do. So that's another item off our list of possibilities. Okay,
Okay,
Jason, thank you so much.
thank you.
for taking the
Yeah,
time to
thank
come
you.
in.
You're very welcome.
Good to see
You've
you.
got my name.
Thanks,
and number,
Jason.
and you can contact me if you have any additional questions.
All right, sounds good.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank
Have a
you.
good one.
We look forward to the final project.
Me too.
All right, moving on. The, as I said earlier, the CPC project assessment form is due in by the end of this month. I've filled it out saying we're looking for $40,000 for community housing, for acquisition, and I think I put support. They were very technical last time
Yeah.
about which categories we checked. And I said, to add to the available funds in anticipation of a future housing opportunity, money of $14,000 was provided to the planning department to fund the required update to the housing production plan.
Yeah. Okay.
You have anything else for me to add to that?
Well,
All right.
I'm on it, so I'll be happy to.
Okay, so
I'll be at
will,
the meeting as we talked about it. So hopefully, if we need to talk about anything, I'll be happy to say anything.
Okay,
But
and-
he was very strict with us last time, so I remember him
Yes,
being
it
like,
was.
"Yeah,
Yeah, I know. So I'll put this in there, you know, in Trish's basket. So
Okay.
that they have it, okay?
all right."
What else? Is there anything else we need to cover? Oh, the quarterly report for the CPC.
Mhm.
I sent that out to you to take a look at. Did you have any comments? Okay, so
No.
I'll submit that. We don't have any update from planning board or the town planner. I did talk with her, nothing. I didn't feel like bothering Paul Armstrong in the building inspector. You know, when he's here, he can give us updates on what's going on. I think the affordable housing lottery in Kingston may have closed by now.
Yeah.
That was a carryover from previous agendas. Mass Housing Partnership has been sending out information on meetings and things, but
Mhm.
most of them are in the North Shore or,
Yeah.
you know, upper Boston. So then we did talk about the water restriction removal. And that's pretty much it that I had on the agenda. I always have a miscellaneous information category in case somebody has something else they want to add on housing.
I'm good.
I'm good. I know the ADUs don't help us.
Yeah, but it's still a great
Yeah.
idea. I'm so happy that
I wish they
people,
would give us some sort of credit for it because I feel like it's,
yeah, but
I
it's
understand.
restricted.
yeah, I know,
You know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the whole point is you have,
right?
you're
In
building for the
perpetuity,
future,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this from
I did.
South Shore Housing
Yeah.
or South Shore Community Action Council
Yep.
on the types of services they provide here.
And what did
in
you
Kingston.
mean about present? You sent me an email and you said, that our representative should present it.
Yeah.
What did you mean?
You have appointed someone to serve on the board of the South Shore
Kim?
Community Action Council.
Yep.
And really, it's their role to come back and
I
say,
gotcha. Okay.
here's the report
Yeah.
of what we're doing here in Kingston.
I got it. Okay. Okay.
Because otherwise, there's no communication,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So I think it's really important that the selectmen, as well as everybody watching the meeting,
And then we can
understand.
put that in our addendum and whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and go over the type of services that they offer.
Okay.
I mean, I served on this board a long time ago. I was the chairman for a while, and they do wonderful things, wonderful things. And I don't think a lot of people know that they're there or what they
Right,
do,
right.
the services they offer. I think this year with the heating bills going up, people are gonna look for some assistance, and they certainly can provide some. I don't know what their funding is gonna look like this year.
Right.
Things are really in limbo. Their Head Start program, mean, it's wonderful, and the
Yeah.
funding there has been a little precarious, so
Yeah,
anything that involves federal funding right now can be
right.
a little,
Influx.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, I want people to know what's available through that organization.
Hey, guys, it looks like I had to have an executive session real quick before I get in there. I didn't
No,
realize that.
no. All we have to do is adjourn. Do you have a
Okay.
motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so 5:52 adjourned. Take a vote. Sheila,
Yes. And thank
Eric?
you.
Yeah.
Jean, aye.
And Eric, I.